Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock. It is a Thursday night and it's time for the 6 o'clock club. Hi, I'm Andy from Twisted Narrative, and tonight, a face that some of you might remember, we have Jack joining us. Thank you very much for joining us, Jack.
No problem.
A big
Really happy to be
wave
here.
to you. Hey there. So, whilst we are waiting, I'm hoping everything is going to plan with the live stream and the like, because it is all new sort of technologies for us. Yeah, it's looking like it is all working very nicely. Um, yeah, so whilst waiting for some people to jump into chat, um, we will talk about tonight's game. We've already talked about the game that was happening on Tuesday night, no game last night. To talk about. So we will look forward to the game that we're doing tonight, which is 5th edition Call of the Nether Deep critical role game. And whilst I was saying I prefer to do homebrew stuff, I have to say this is very much one of the books that I am very much enjoying. It's beautifully written, and it's written in a very critical role sort of style of game. Just going to do a quick shout out to Leprechaun. He's just jumped into chat. Hi there. Thanks for joining us. Um, and the people in that game tonight, we have Jack, who is here. We
Yeah.
have Michael and we have Connor. Normally, there's a few more sort of players, James, Joe, and M. Unfortunately, for various reasons, as we all know, when you try to run a game, um, um, things happen, family things, real life things, and the like. So we will miss you all. We will miss you all, but the game is going to continue.
It
Uh,
is.
so let us about it very briefly whilst we're waiting for people to jump into chat, and then we'll get into the main body of tonight's club, which is talking about the smoke. So as a player, Jack, tell me about it. What I mean, are you enjoying it? What
Yeah.
things are you enjoying about it, etc., etc.?
So I'm really enjoying it. I think like you said, it does have that critical role feel, but I think what works well is the fact that you don't necessarily need to be a critical role fan to really appreciate this. To appreciate, I think what it does, it kind of has these sort of nods to maybe a few things like, oh, you might know this thing, or you might know this person over here, but you don't really need to know anything about the lore or even be a fan of it to really appreciate the campaign itself. I've one of the players that we're playing with who's there tonight, Connor. This is his first sort of foray into like a proper campaign. Doesn't really know anything about the world. But I think just the way in which it's been written is it's really really nice. The 2 weeks ago when we were going into the session, we have an opportunity to go and I think what will be a fairly intensive sort of combat heavy area, but we spent sort of 3 hours just kind of interacting with NPCs. It's a very sort of rich, vibrant kind of area that we're in. So we just sort of went from place to place, and just it was just a nice sort of role play kind of atmosphere. And I think that's been curated really, really well in the book. Not
Yeah,
necessarily, it's not even necessarily just this town. It's everything that we've done so far. As a critical role
yeah,
fan, it's definitely I can feel the Matt Mercer in it.
yeah, yeah.
It's really really good fun.
I mean, absolutely. And it's kind of written that way as well. I know that eventually you'll probably sort of get the book, or you probably already got it on your shelf,
Yes,
waiting,
it's behind me.
waiting to get through the campaign so you can look at it. And when you do, you will see that I've stayed true to the book. There's one or two sort of tweaks here and there, just very very minor stuff, because it is written very much in a style that I like to do myself. The NPCs. Um, that they're not massively fleshed out, which is great,
Mhm.
because you don't want to, as a GM, kind of read, pages and pages of information. But the small information that you do get is just perfect for you to go,
Mm.
yeah, I can get into the bones of this NPC, and I know what they're about, and it communicates very, very rapidly and very fast. The one way of handling the NPCs, and what is very interesting in this campaign, which you are familiar with already, is there's another group of adventurers,
Mm. Yeah, I
um,
really like that.
which are a group of NPCs, and I don't want to say much more than that, other than this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but it's not. Is these NPCs are written to react to how they're treated by the
Yeah.
characters, and that's how all NPCs should be written, sort of written. It's no, this NPC is going to hate the characters.
Mm.
If the characters are nice and chilled and kind of, what,
Yeah.
why would this NPC do that? Um, so it's really nice playing these NPCs, and they've got their own agendas, they've got their own personalities, absolutely. Sorry, you're going to say something. You look
Yeah,
like.
no, I think I don't know if this is like a something that you've injected or if it's in the book or whatever, but yes. So I definitely really like this sort because I've never been into a campaign where you have these either rivals or friends, just like another sort of gang that are going on a very similar journey to you. And yes, because especially I think different different people are going to be reacting differently to them. So yes, I kind of had in my I've not read the gone through the book yet because I don't
Yeah,
want any spoilers, but there must have been something in there saying friendly or
yeah,
either
yeah,
friends
yeah. No,
or angry and stuff. But
absolutely. There is guidance to how
mm.
they would react to players that are nice to them and to players that are not nice to them, or
and
other characters.
I really like as well that they've like you said they've all got their own agendas too. They don't feel like a blob of
Yeah,
five NPCs. They're all very different with unique
yeah, yeah.
personalities and depending on who you speak to, you're going to get a different reaction. And I mean, it's props to yourself as well, but it's very nicely done.
Well, yeah. I love role playing. I love characterization. So it's a dream to sort of run, really. And perhaps I should have mentioned it last night as one of the books that has been released that I really do enjoy. I didn't really mention it because I've not finished it, um, and it seems wrong to go. Yeah, this is a brilliant book, which so far it is until I finish running the campaign. Talking about last night, Jack, you were
Yes.
instrumental. You were the hidden hand behind everything that happened last night. You
Oh,
asked a
yes.
few questions in our Discord, which really appreciate. More questions, put it in our Discord, which you can find the link if you're not already in it in the comment section below, because we want to talk about the things that you want us to talk about.
Mm.
So tell us, and then we can do it. But did you get a chance to um, sort of listen and watch
Yes, I
last
did.
night?
I had you on whilst I was cooking, so thank you for to both you and Christian for picking it up. I think it was very interesting conversation. Um, I think both of you sort of touched it on definitely on the head. That I suppose well initially from a mechanical standpoint that I think yes it is very difficult to die in if we're specifically talking about fifth ed. Um, Maybe it wouldn't be the sort of the best option to go about it. Although I did mention to you just before the stream that I was watching it because I was cooking, and then went to the 7 o'clock campaign, and then we all had a TPK, which is
Yeah,
the first time I've ever had a total party kill before. Um,
maybe Chris was watching your questions in
I thought,
Discord and went,
right,
right, okay, yeah.
easy. um,
Andy
so
thinks
yes.
it's difficult to kill characters. Hold my beer.
Yes, watch this. But I think it answered everything that I wanted to do, and I especially when you spoke about, I think you spoke a little bit about homebrew versus campaigns and stuff, and obviously I think we've touched
Yeah, yeah,
on it before. Um, I think I would be in a similar vein of I think homebrew with a little bit of sprinkling of campaign stuff, and as you mentioned about Call of the Netherdeep.
Yeah,
probably just giving you just sort of little notes and nudges probably works very, very well. I know
absolutely.
you mentioned Waterdeep being a particular favourite of yours, and obviously I was in that Waterdeep campaign that you
Yeah,
ran, and that was really, really, really good. The only thing I found slightly odd about that was the juxtaposition of Waterdeep going into Mad Mage, two very, very different
yeah.
campaign styles.
We mentioned that before. They are literally the opposite ends of the spectrum,
Yeah,
and I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I would have big conversations with the players. If I ran levels 1 to 5 Dragon Heist, and then they wanted to continue, whether they would enjoy that style of play, delving into Mad
mm.
Mage. It's for some tables. I'm running Mad Mage at the moment. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
I've got
yeah.
the right players with it, but it's a different experience to Dragon Heist.
Yeah,
Um,
because we did something very, very when we did it in the campaign, our Waterdeep campaign, we carried on the campaign, but you built something completely different, didn't you? More a lot, I think, a bit more role play focused, just because that was the people at
yeah,
the table wanted, and that was really, really good. So
absolutely.
yeah, it was a very, very good conversation, and yeah, thank you for answering all of the
No,
questions.
thank you for the questions. Just seen Michael has shouted hello, so hello to you,
Oh,
Michael. Thank you for jumping into chat as well. Michael will be in tonight's game. I'm looking forward to that very much in about 50 minutes' time. Okay, so it's given chance for some people to jump into chat. I am monitoring chat tonight, so if you are in there, shout hi or whatever, drop a question in. We'll move to the main body, well, the tagline of what tonight is about. And now, if that's okay with everybody, which is about the smoke. Another one of Jack's questions, actually, rather than me going, I want to tell you all about the smoke, which I do. So, I mean, let us start at the beginning. What do you want to know? Is it how I developed it? Is it the background of it? Is what?
yes, I think
Yes,
all
yes.
of that.
Ask
So
me
I
some
suppose, yeah.
questions.
So I think if we started, so how did it originate? Where did the idea come from? Because it's been going for quite some time, hasn't it? I
Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I, I know. So my wife Jen was in a smoke campaign for 3 years, and that's going back
yeah,
about two or 3 years. So how long has it been going for? How
yeah.
did it come to be?
A long time. I mean, I was playing around and I created the smoke uh, before even sort of the Chimera store. It had a big influence in the sort of live action role play world that I was involved in running in under Chimera Leisure as well. Um, but it was very difficult to represent. Um, the smoke, this urban
Mm.
sprawl of a sort of Victorian Gothic city in a field. What fundamentally happened is the smoke was off scene, and NPCs from the smoke had
Oh,
meet the
right.
players and are involved in the plot elsewhere. And that's kind of where it originated. But I think there's always been sort of concepts and ideas for the smoke floating around in quite a lot of the games I ran previous to that.
Mm.
Probably didn't register it as the smoke then, but as you start developing, oh, let's make this urban sprawl. You kind of, oh, I used that before. I'll take that idea and add it. Um, so it's been in my head for a very, very sort of long time. I've always
Mm.
liked urban games.
Yeah.
I just like the interaction of it. I kind of loved Hammer House of Horror movies back in the day. It's kind of relevant to the sort of developing of it, which I'll discuss in a minute.
Mm.
I loved sort of Tom Baker was my Doctor Who, sort of the fourth Doctor, and there were quite a large amount of his Earthbound adventures were based in sort of sort of 1920s Victorian times. One that I'm sure Michael is very, very familiar with is Talons of Wang Chiang, which still lives with me today. It's an absolute classic. Um, and I was inspired at a young age for these kind of environments and these kind of settings. So that has always sort of stayed with me. Um, and then sort of growing up through other sort of systems, things like Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, again urban environments. But whilst there is a fancy element to Shadowrun, it is very much cyberpunk, and I very much like that steampunk or dieselpunk kind of feel. Not that I dislike cyberpunk, but it's just a different sort of feel and genre. So I really wanted to develop um, something where you could do a fancy version of Shadowrun or Cyberpunk, a place where you could have a crew, a group of ne'er-do-wells, really,
Yeah.
that could be hired to do these runs in the shadows. Um, so that is where the idea sort of originally sort of came from, and then with that sort of concept, I sort of put all the building blocks on it. Like, how is this going to work? Well, we need corporations, don't we? I mean, that's really what we need. So, the first building step for that was, well, we can't call them corporations. We can, but that's very modern. So we'll have like a number of mercantile houses instead. Same thing, just different terminology that are the elite. These are powerful organisations that, in effect, control the city. And then I had to sort of kind of work out sort of what is their shtick, what are they about. So we had one that controls the press,
Yeah.
we had one that controls kind of innovation, etc., etc. And I developed a number of those. The other thing that I actually wanted as well was I wanted it to be dirty and murky. I wanted it to be sort of diesely punky.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. One, I kind of love that feel. But two, I this is going to be an admission. I loathe dark vision. Um, I just it's like it's one of these crazy things of what's the point then?
Mm.
You know, I understand why fancy races have got it, but all that happens is everybody has dark vision, and well, it's the same as normal. So and it negates so much fun. Um, you can't have that suspicion of things lurking in the dark and in the shadows. You can't build up that suspense when people see everything. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm aware of dark vision. How can get round that? Well, fog or smog, murky, piece. Dark vision doesn't penetrate that.
Mm.
And that means that when you go out on the streets, there could be things in the fog that you are unaware of. And
Absolutely.
instantly it just gives, I think, a richer feel. It's not that I kind of want to get surprise rounds on my players. But I want my players to feel that suspicion of there is something out there. There were other reasons as well. I kind of wanted a sort of perpetual darkness in places, a lack of sunlight. There might be spoilers there, especially if you think back to what happened to you last night. um,
Yes. Yes.
um, so to get this smog, it had to be industrial as well, which is kind of why I went from sparkly steampunk to much more sort of diesel, and then factories. And um, I also wanted it's a degree of laziness in me, but also a degree of allowing the players to have a very strong visual almost instantly. So rather than creating like an entire new city layout, It was like, well, let's base it on an alternate reality London. You
Yeah.
know, for those of you who are in the UK, you're aware that London is like that. You can imagine a Victorian London. We've all seen Hammer House of Horror movies, you know, Jack the Ripper and the like. We all know that the river that goes through it is like the Thames, and it's an important river, and there's all these fantastic bridges that cross it. And it made me think, well, if we've got all of this smog, then the river itself will be polluted.
I remember
And
the polluted rivers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then hence the slick rather than the Thames, this horrible kind of just polluted river going through it. And that means the sort of more slum-like areas are closer to that horrible river, and there's horrible contamination and taint coming from it, which again I think leads to sort of different districts and
Yeah, I was going to ask that because I think so. Obviously, I've had some player experience in it before, and I think when so as part of the mass campaign, I think it felt very rich, and there were very sort of defined. Obviously, you had the district, and I don't know who it was, but I know someone in your community did a really amazing map
Well, it's funny you
of
should
which
mention that because yes, let me call that up for the moment. There you go. This is a map I kind of had commissioned. It's on the stream at the moment for the smoke, and
yeah,
again, this kind of sums up the feeling that I was trying to get from it. It's not a very detailed map, but it kind of shows the
no, it's
expanse
amazing,
of the
absolutely.
city. And a big thank you to Liz that do this for me. I've actually put Liz's name as a credit down in the comment section of this video. I've got the original still, very very safe. This is not a scan but a photograph. It's a very big very big illustration. It's beautiful. I will at some point get it framed and get it on my
Yeah,
wall
yeah.
here.
So
Um,
are you able to take us through these districts then? If we go
yeah,
around
yeah.
and show us where the areas are?
I suppose yes. That would be a good way of doing it, really. So I suppose starting from the left, you've got the Splendor and the Breeze, which are kind of the Splendor is what would be considered to be central London. It's where all of the expensive shops, the boutiques, the eateries, the theatres, and everything else is. So it's not necessarily where all of the super rich live, but it's certainly where they would be spending much of their money. And speaking of money, the money we changed slightly as well. So we did originally run it as fifth edition, and I didn't want to create an entirely new monetary sort of system. So we just basically called gold pieces cogs and platinum pieces gears, and then sort of copper pieces were bits. So again, it just gives you that little bit of flavour,
Mm.
um, and it was easy transferable. You know, if something costs 5 gold pieces, it costs 5 cogs. Basically, it's just a change of name um, to to kind of get flavour into it. And then the breeze, which is a hill, is where many of the rich and the wealthy live. Not really sort of nobles, because again, it's a mercantile city, but people with wealth live there, and obviously because it's on a hill, it gets a breeze and there's not so much fog or smog or anything else. A little extra thing that I did that isn't marked on the map is that many of the mega wealthy have airships that are anchored above the city. And these are just basically like yachts rather than military airships. And many of them are not even saleable. But because the smoke is so polluted and there's so much of this smog, they literally live high above the smoke, and I thought that was quite a nice imagery,
Mm.
and it works well with the word high society as well. They are literally high society because they live high up in the air. And then sort of moving across, Cog Street is the sort of banking district. This is a place of industry, so therefore also a place of commerce, and there are a large number of banks and sort of notaries and vaults that all sort of exist in that sort of area. Um, I mentioned I wanted skullduggery and the equivalent of Shadowrun. So this is obviously a highly sort of sought after location where many of these mercantile houses and guilds, which I might come on to in a minute if we've got enough time, because there are two different sort of stratus of society there. Um, uh, Cog Street is where all of that happens.
Mm.
Then to the north of that, across the slick, is the neighbourhoods. This is fundamentally where most of the populace of the smoke live. Those that have a relatively decent income, where all of the workers fundamentally live. Moving down, we come to the squalor. This is the sort of slum areas, very much kind of inspired by the East End and all of that kind of stuff, sort of very crowded tenement housing and the like. Um, to the south of there is Greenstone. I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a Chinatown type of environment. Within the world of the smoke, there is a place which was developed from the live role playing group I used to work with, called the Court of Five Thunders, which has a very Asian feel.
Mm.
Um, and I kind of wanted that to be here. It gives a degree of sort of flavour. I'm a big fan of Big Trouble in Little China. And of course, it's, you kind of want imports of tea because it is that kind of environment. There will
Yeah.
be tea houses and stuff like that. Um, so that's how that sort of developed. To the top right, you have Sut Hill, which is obviously where all of the factories are, pumping out all of this horrible smoke and pollution. And then finally, you've got Slick Side, which is kind of the dock areas, but it is also um, an even poorer area of the squalor. So there's warehousing and the like, and then there's the place that no one really wants to live, but has little choice to do that. A fantastic map that Liz did
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and
Great,
it's very
absolutely.
flavoursome. I'll just move that out of the way so people can sort of see us. Um, so that is the districts. Um, Let us just quickly look at chat again. Um, Cara says, so the smoke was basically your campaign against Darkfish. No, not at all. I just wanted to have something in this world that you know affected that, so you could have some suspense lurking in the streets, and I stand by it. It lends itself to a richer game. Elsa has said some serious Ankh-Morpork vibes there too, but I know you don't really do disc work. It speaks to a British sense of city. Absolutely. I'm kind of like the worst person ever because I love Terry Pratchett's writing, but I've literally read very little to it, and there are some Terry Pratchett influences in the smoke. Um, Not because I've deliberately put it in there, but because Terry is a fantastic
Yes.
author.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, the majority of people will have read his books. They bring that instead, and it becomes. I don't like to be the kind of designer that just ignores what other people bring to the table. I like to incorporate it. Um, and through sort of osmosis of ideas, there are most definitely some Pratchett influences there. Um, and I'm very proud to have it. As I say, fantastic author. Heather, my good lady wife, is a massive fan and read all of the books. Um, but yeah, well spotted there. Well spotted. And I think most sort of Pratchett like is the guilds, which I'm going to go on to next, if that's okay. Um, I kind of wanted the mercantile houses to be almost untouchable, to be almost so powerful that the characters don't often interact directly with them. They might do on a lower level. You know, they might go to a newsstand and buy the Pinch Press, you know, the big newspaper of there. They might know journalists that work for it, but you don't rock up to Titus Pinch's, you know, house and
Mm.
get a meeting with him. Um, because I wanted them to be this almost unattainable, powerful, wealthy individuals. So I needed something to fill that middle space, which was the guild system. Again, didn't want sort of nobles or kind of minor nobles or whatever. So we have the guilds, and the guilds are known for one kind of thing, but they have a sideline as well. So, for instance, the Hatters, they literally make hats, but
Yes, I remember
through the many years of dealing with chemicals to make hats, they've become the almost the alchemist guild now as well. So it's not like it's super secret, but it's just what they known for. The gem cutters, known as the cutters, are also like the thieves guild. Um, and there's a whole host of these different guilds. Some of them inspired by players' puns. So, for instance, there are the upholsterers. The upholsterers are the doctors because they literally put the stuffing back into you. That was a player pun that we had to use, and there's many of them. There's sort of higher guilds, middle guilds, and minor guilds. The Ratters Guild fundamentally is misnamed because they literally are ratters that live in the sewers that hunt rats. Um, so that was interesting because the guilds are one way that the players can get missions and jobs and everything else too, and also things that they can link up with. But this led to another interesting sort of political and intriguing concept. If there are all these guilds and they're not necessarily on the same side, and there's all of these mercantile houses, who basically deals with crime? Um, well, what I came up with is uh, taxes ensure that the peelers police the smoke, but the taxes are sort of raised and paid by the guilds and the mercantile houses. So, in effect, the police force is funded not by one particular group, but by the city as a whole. But they are open to potential manipulation, pressure being put on them if, for instance, an investigation was going against one of the mercantile houses. Um, so there's a degree of sort of bribery and corruption sort of
Mm.
going on, um, which led me to the idea of private detective agencies as well, which again is a very Sherlock Holmes-esque, that kind of Victorian sort of feel. And the police force will act on evidence. It's just finding the right
Yeah.
evidence. So a lot of these independent detective agencies sprung up because um, if someone with money decided that they weren't getting the right justice, they could hire one of these detective agencies to attempt to find that information out, which is a perfect in for players as well, to be hired by these detective agencies to go off and try and find evidence against someone else, really. So it's another good hook to get players involved in what is going on in the city.
Yeah.
Um, so it was all starting to come together with all of these very, very sort of different ideas, and there's different sort of levels of play, whether you want to play a wealthy socialite who is involved in these mercantile houses, whether you want to play a guildsman, whether you want to literally live in the sewers and be a ratter. Um, there's a whole host of different social experiences that you can have as a player. But I also wanted something else as well, and I liberally borrowed this directly from Shadowrun because that was one of the concepts that I had. And in Shadowrun, you have something called a Johnson. A Johnson is they're all called Johnsons. They are an agent or an intermediary for a corporation that is this faceless suit that will hire a group of Shadowrunners to do a mission. Quite often, no questions asked. This is the job, this is the payroll, off you go and do it. And I kind of wanted that as well. So I created my own version of Johnson's, which are called Does. Um, and I kind of liked. I mean, obviously I liked it. I wrote it, but a doe kind of seems a nice, gentle sort of creature. But it doesn't come from the creature. It actually comes from John Doe, as in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
nameless individual. And you've got a female version of it as well, a Jane Doe. And these are these faceless individuals that are hired by the mercantile houses or anybody else to go and hire a group of uh, unscrupulous adventurers to do dirty jobs for them, really. So it all sort of works together quite nicely. I mean, I like urban environments and I like
Yeah.
this kind of rich sort of system. So it works very well for me. I've babbled and waffled quite a
It
lot.
does. Yes. I think that obviously it's very much a testament to just like I've said before, just how rich and just I think you can obviously just see how passionate you are. I think one of the what I had in my head whilst you were talking there was obviously some very nice things in terms of players influencing stuff or bits like that. And something might not come off the top of your head here, but are there any sort of standout moments for you, either as a GM or something that a player's done, or anything that really stands out to you as the time that you've ran the smoke, where
Yeah,
some
yeah.
really good favorite times there, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I ran it for a lot of the time that we were running the store. So,
Mm,
10, 13 years sort of.
right.
The smoke was always part of my games. And don't get me wrong, I like other cities as well. I like Baldur's Gate, I like Waterdeep.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to do something less high fantasy and more
Yeah.
dark and gritty.
Dirty. Yeah.
Yeah, dirty is exactly the thing. So there's been some absolutely brilliant characters, involved there. We've had a character, we've had a group of characters that reached level 20 through a campaign that we did, and that not the characters, but one of the characters. Um, Sort of established a bar, a very nice tavern in the heart
Nice.
of the Splendor, which exists to today, and there's been a number of times the smoke has been um, almost destroyed and the
Mm.
players have saved the day as well. I don't want to say too much more because I might be repeating some
Yes.
of the campaign information.
No,
Um,
no, that's all good. So I suppose I could say, so what are the plans for the smoke going forward then? What do
well,
you
this is interesting. I say it's interesting. You might not find it interesting, but I find it interesting. I'm actually quite excited about it. It's something that I've been working on for a while, and I've been asking sort of vagaries in Discord about various bits and pieces that seem to be sort of disjointed and the like. First and foremost, I am running a game set in the smoke at the moment. It is actually on this Saturday. We've got Kyle and we've got Cara and we've got Ben and we've got Marcus in that already, and it's great fun. They very kindly, both Kyle and Cara, their Spelljammer game came to an end, so we've had them crash land on the outskirts of the smoke, and they're looking at ways of repairing their ship, and they've thrown themselves into the feel of the smoke beautifully, and really enjoying that. So that is going to continue. It's still quite early. I think maybe level 3ish, maybe 4 that they are at the moment. So we've got a long way to go with that. But all of these questioning about the smoke and me looking back at my old notes and the like, I've decided that I want to do more smoke, and hopefully so do the players too. But I want to try something different. With all of this kerfuffle about the open license, the OGL, with that, I've spent quite a lot of January looking at other systems, and what I'm proposing, I have absolutely no idea whether this is going to be of any interest or work. Hopefully it will be. Is to run some actual play one shots set in the smoke. But rather than doing them all as 5th edition, to choose various systems that do what they're very good at, to represent parts of the smoke. So obviously they're not going to be connected, because as we were saying earlier, it's going to be very difficult to do crossover events with character designed for different systems. So, for instance, there might be a high society horror game that we might use Call of Cthulhu Regency in. There might be a heist based game that we might use Blades of the Dark in. There might be a sort of investigative type game that we might use Vassan in. There might be a very grimy one set in the sewers that we might use Merkborg in. So the idea really is to do one shots testing out many of these other systems. This allows the viewers to see the setting of the smoke, which will say consistent throughout all of these games, but also get a feel for how these games run and to see that they're not particularly complex. Don't get me wrong, I still do some smoke that are 5th ed as well. I like 5th edition, but it will be we're choosing the right flavour of game for the right part of the
Yeah.
setting of the smoke. And if I can make us disappear for the moment, I've got a little graphic.
Ooh.
Oof, there we go. Look at that. Once again, featuring the beautiful map from Liz there. And also, you will see that I did another shout out, another credit, this time to Elsa for the Twisted Narrative logo. I've mentioned several times that Elsa designed it and has been um, very supportive and helpful in showing me how to do all of this graphic design stuff. And I've credited her down in the comment section as well. But yeah, so Tales from the Smoke YouTube live actual play coming soon, and it will be different systems, same setting. We can expect those soonish. I'm looking at starting to do most of the actual plays starting in March onwards, but they will be one shots. If you are interested,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, send me a message in Discord, which you can find in the chat as well. We're building up a list of people that want to participate in these actual plays. The only real requirements is obviously we will be live streaming, so you're going to need sort of decent audio and video to make it work. And we really want an audience as well. All of these are going to be live. Um, So yeah, once you know, they'll probably be either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, and they alternate. And there might be a little string of them, or there might be just one, and then we move to something else because we've got a few actual plays lined up. And if you check out our YouTube live channel, you can see that we've got improv, which is going to be this Sunday night, which Jack is on,
I
Michael's
am.
on, and Jocelyn's on, and we really need an audience for that. For it to really be as crazy and as manic and as chaotic, um, we kind of need audience participation in that. I can call up the very shelter your eyes. This is a bright graphic there. It is a very beautiful pink and yellow, starting at 8 o'clock, and it will last maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, no longer than that, as the players will be taking on the roles of imps. Um, it's going to have, for those of you who have played or are aware of the role playing game Paranoia, that kind of feel to it. They'll have a number of imps that, if one of them should perish, they can spawn again. And they are at the bidding of the infernal hierarchy, and we'll basically see where that takes us from. So, as well as that, we've also got this coming Tuesday the Blades in the Dark game as well. And then on the 14th of March, Charlie, who is the writer of Shiver, has volunteered
Mm.
to run a game of Shiver for us as well. So we've got an actual play of that, as well
Are
as
you
this.
playing in the
I'm
Shiver game? Are you?
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to that, and the Blades in
That'd
the
be good.
Dark one. So very much so. The next stage of our evolution from the 6 o'clock club is to start running some actual plays. We've got some great people on board already, Jack being one of them. And if you are interested, we are a club, we are a community. We can't guarantee places, obviously. We kind of want to limit it to maybe about 4 people at a time. But if you don't get your name on the list, it will never happen. Um,
Mm,
if not, please come and join us and watch them, because I think they'll be super fun. And I'm actually
definitely.
really, really excited about the Smoke actual play, because not only do I get to work on and use and expand the Smoke setting, but I get to dip my toe into the waters of all of these other fantastic systems as well. So a lot to do. We are ticking on time. Let's have a look
Yeah.
at that. You there. Cara and Kyle are bemoaning the crash of their spelljammer. Poor Herbie, sunk in the marshes outside the Smoke. Kyle says, "My poor ship, it was a problem with the engineering." He hasn't said not the pilot, but I think as Kyle was playing the pilot, Skill is talking about maybe doing Tales of the Smoke second edition AD and D, because Skill is obsessed with second edition. It was the edition that really, really hit home for me as well. So I totally understand you. Elsa has said the screen looks epic, and
Yeah, it does. They're great.
a big thank you to Elsa for, again, all their help. Okay, well, I mean, there might be plenty more questions that you want to ask, but we are running out of time. You and me have got to meet again in 10 minutes for our Call of
Yes.
the Neverdeep game. So
Yes. Got to head to
uh,
Exandria, haven't we, Thomas?
we have got to head to Exandria. So I want to say a big thank you to everybody in chat. A big thank you if you're watching on catch up. Please don't forget to give us a subscribe and like if you haven't already. It will help us out absolutely an unbelievable amount. You don't know how much it means to us. I say a big thank you to Jack as well for joining us and helping spark this conversation. Um, when I do my sort of solo talks, I find it very difficult. So having someone to bounce off is really, really helpful, and I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, I hope everybody has found it interesting. how I came up with all of these ideas. And it is an evolution of thought from, as I say, players bringing things to the table and everything else. But I really, really, I love the smoke, and I'm very excited about these actual plays. So don't forget to mention it in Discord if you are too. Without further ado, then, we'll say goodbye for now. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock again. But in the meantime, look after yourselves, look after each other, and it's goodbye from me and
Bye.
bye from Jack. Take care, everybody. See you later.
Bye.